Daily Beats Productions. Daily Beats Productions. Daily Beats Productions. You are listening to Daily Beats. Daily Beats Productions. Daily Beats Productions. Daily Beats Productions. You are listening to Daily Beats. Daily Beats Productions. Daily Beats Productions. Daily Beats Productions. Shit, I just realized I'm not talking.
Ah, man, I'm sorry. I need to go back. I need today. I was talking, but I had my mic on here and the lights were blinking, but I had my voice muted in OBS. Ah, shit. Okay, so let's go. I'm sorry. Let's go a little bit to the beginning. I just lost 10 minutes of the live stream. Okay, so I started the live stream with a small announcement, and I would like to say sorry because I'm not in the best mood today. Because my neighbor decided yesterday to blast music at 5 a.m. and I couldn't sleep, so I'm a little bit moody. I'm not in a good vibe, let's say. And but actually, this made me feel a little bit better, even though it was a mistake of wasting 10 minutes of live stream without audio, and you just saw me speaking. I apologize for that. But yeah, so today I'm a little bit moody, so I might not have the same energy that I usually have in the other videos. But the idea is to continue and doing this. I was actually not in the mood to make the live stream today, but I was like, no, I have to do it. I set out myself to do the live stream, so I have to do it. Even if I'm alone here, I actually before I was seeing the count of people joining. Now I'm not. I don't know how many people are joining, if they are seeing, if they are not. If you are seeing, the only way for me to know that you are in the live stream is you putting hi in the chat, which I strongly recommend. If you have any questions, you can also put them in the chat. But I have to be more careful here with the setup so that I don't do this stuff here. But again, I'm a one-man band here in the studio doing this live stream. So sometimes this stuff can happen, and I don't even realize. I only realize afterwards. So yeah, it's a little bit unfortunate that I was not recording my voice. Okay, this live streams is for music producers that want to clarify their questions. So the idea here is to ask questions, and then I will do my best to answer the questions and give you the best option or the best answer possible that I can. And these live streams will happen every Saturday at around 6 p.m. GMT +2, which is the Berlin time. And I also have a link in the description so that you can subscribe to the newsletter where I will ask questions, or I will send out a form where you can ask your questions, and those questions will have a higher priority here in the stream compared with the ones in the chat. So let's go ahead and jump into the first question, since I was not talking to you guys. I'm sorry again for that. So the first question is, what is Patcher? And I was actually doing here some I will have to cut these post-production, but that's fine. And what Patcher basically is a plugin, native plugin from FL Studio. And let's jump into FL Studio now that you can see me and hear my voice and see my screen. So I want to do two distinctions, which is, for instance, I can have here plugins, and these are called generators. As you can see here, they generate audio. I can have a piano, I can have basses, I can have synths, I can have whatever. And then I can route these instruments or generators to the mixer. And then here in the mixer, I can have effects. So something like an EQ or compressor, reverb, delay, whatever, effects. And these ones do not generate audio, but they do affect audio. As you can see, I can change here the way the audio sounds. And this is an effect, and this is a generator. Why I say this? Because Patcher can be both an effect and a generator at the same time. So if I load here Patcher, you see that it loads here as a generator. But if I load it here in the mixer, it also loads. So Patcher can be both a generator and an effect, which is very powerful. Well, I have here a question. What is a good sound and what a bad sound? I don't understand the question, Amos, to be honest. What is a good sound and what is a bad? In terms of what? I don't understand, sorry. But let's go back here to Patcher. So Patcher is actually, can be both a generator and an effect. And I'm going to talk about it here in terms of the mixer. So in the mixer, what we have is a sequence of audio. So if I have 10 plugins here, what will happen is that the audio will come into plugin 1, and then after that, plugin 2, plugin 3, and so on. So the chain of effects here influence the audio path. So if we have 10 slots, they will be processed first in slot 1, then slot 2, and slot 4, 3, and so on. So this is a sequence. And I'm talking about this because here we have these 3 parameters in Patcher. And this is from FL Studio to FL Studio and Surface, which means that we have audio coming from FL Studio or information coming into from FL Studio, and we can add here processing, and then we have to FL Studio. So let's say that this was in slot 2, and in slot 1 we had an EQ. So the EQ was processed, and then the output of the EQ would come into this plugin here from FL Studio. We will do our own processing, and then we would output that processing to FL Studio to continue the chain. That's basically the idea. And then we have here the surface where we can control stuff. So if we move to the surface here, we see that we have a blank canvas. And in this canvas, we can add stuff. So let's do here in the plus button. And we can see that we can have bevels, buttons, checkbox, and the keyboards, knobs, and all the things that we have natively in FL Studio. We can add them here. So let's add a knob, and let's go with a blue line. That should be fine. Let's make it big, and let's rename it. Let's call this dry, wet, or no, let's go with a simple one. Let's call this volume. Okay. And as you can see here, I can also show the grid. Let's do a grid of 10 points. And I can move it around here, something like that. That should be fine. Now, if I remove that or click here, you see that this is a little bit yellow. If I remove this, now I cannot move the knob again. I can only interact with the knob like it was a plugin. So this is a way for you to build plugins or to build your own chains as if it was a plugin. So now if we go back here to the map, we see now that we have another point there. So when we started Patcher, there was no point there. There was only this one here, the MIDI output, and we had here now this MIDI or this output, which is the volume, as you can see here in the hint panel, volume. By the way, let me see if I'm in the correct one. Probably not, but we can actually work with this. Okay, so now let's say that I want to create a synth, and I want to have the control of the volume. How would I do that? So I could go here to, where is it? Let's do with the 3x oscillator. Okay, it's not supported in Patcher. Let's bring another one. That's a bummer. GMS probably it is. Okay. And as you can already see, we have here the input already connected. So these 2 different colors, lines with different colors, they represent different things. And as you can see here, we have audio, which is the yellow one. And this is the audio. We have parameters, which is the red one, probably that one. And then we have events, which is this one here. So what happens in this case is that we don't have any audio coming from FL Studio, but we do have events. And events, for instance, are MIDI notes. And now if I play this, if I go to my keyboard and I play a C note, you see that this is sending notes, MIDI notes into GMS, and then GMS is sending audio signal to FL Studio. And that's why whenever I click a note, you see this movement of the arrows. Okay. It means that we are sending MIDI notes, and then this is getting the MIDI notes and generating audio to Patcher or to FL Studio through this connection. And of course, we can change the volume here, and we can do a lot of stuff. So I wanted to add a volume to the GMS. Of course, GMS also has output volume here, but that's not the point. The point here is to show you the functionality of Patcher. So I would go here. I would go to now effects, to the effects section here, and I would go to gain. And for instance, I would add a Panomatic. Okay, and now it created me here an instance of Panomatic. So now I want to put this Panomatic in between GMS and FL Studio. So to do that, I just drag this and connect the lines as so. And now I can go here, and if I play any notes, you will see that it's still generating audio. But now I can control here the volume, and you see that the lines are still generating or are still giving notes here. We still have notes coming in from FL Studio to GMS. The audio is also going to Fruity Panomatic, but here we created or we removed the volume, and there's no audio coming out of Panomatic because we removed the volume. So that's the powerful thing about Edison or Patcher, is that you can create your own flows. You can create your own processing based on this. And now I want to connect this bottom, this volume button, to this volume button here. And to do that, I have to right click on Fruity Panomatic, and I go here to inputs, and let's see which one. We have here volume. And if I click here, you see that now we have another point there. And now I can just drag and drop this point here. And if I go to surface, and if I start moving this, you see that it moves automatically that knob. And the good thing about this is that, for instance, with one knob, you can map to different things. So let's say that I had here another instance, let's say maybe some reverb. Let's do that. Let's do a reverb here, and let's connect the reverb parallel to the volume. And I also want to affect the volume here. So what I would do, for instance, is the wet signal. Yeah, that could be it. So let's do the same thing. Inputs, and let's find the wet signal, wet level, and then we can also connect there. So now you can see that I can really do some different effects and create some parameters here that I can control. And with one single knob, I can control several parameters in my flow here, in the mapping flow. So this is very powerful. That's why Patcher is one of the most powerful plugins that you can master in FL Studio, and you can have really cool effects, or have your own plugin chain here and have really cool things with Patcher. So I think that's it. Let's see. Amus also, how can I hear a good sound for sound selection? Okay. I think I understand your question, but I would say that the most for me, I also struggled with this in the beginning when I was starting music production. Finding the right sounds was always a fight, always a struggle. And what happened to me was, as I was doing more music, listening to music, making music, listening to music, and making more music, that problem went away. And now it's a little bit more organic for me. So I don't think about, oh, this sound good for this one or not. I usually create my sound selection as I'm producing. So if I need something, I just go and find something, or if I want, I can do some design to create it. But I think this, you can only get this from experience, from making music, from listening to a lot of music, and then you will start to pick up what is good, what sounds good, what it doesn't. And yeah, I mean, there's no science for this one, because what sounds good to me might not sound good to you, and vice versa. So it's a little bit of how can I say, it's a little bit of listening to a lot of music, making a lot of music, and start to get a feel for what is a good sound selection. And at the end, there's actually nothing that you can say, oh, that's good sound selection. Yeah, you can, of course, because if the music sucks, then you can say that the sound selection was horrible. But if the music sounds good, the sound selection was good, you know. So it's kind of hard to answer that question. I think it's a little bit of experience, a little bit of making music, listening to a lot of music, and see what's popping. Okay, let's go to the next question, which is, do we have a De-Esser in FL Studio? We don't have a plugin for de-essing in FL Studio, but we can do something to have that. So let's go into FL Studio. And as you can see here in the plugins, in the dynamics, we don't have nothing for de-essing. And De-Esser is actually a dynamic plugin. So we could have an EQ to curve out the S and T's and all that sibilance, but we can also use something called a multiband compressor or Maximus, which is also a multiband compressor. So I will record. Let me record here something really quickly where I say something very with a lot of S's, and my voice has a tendency to have a lot of S's, a lot of sibilance. So let's do on play, or actually on input, and then I can record something. Test 1, cell, test. Okay, something like that should work. Okay, so now we can, sorry for if it doesn't sound that great. But let's see now. Let's send this to channel 2. Test 1, cell, test. As you can see, I'm forcing the S's so that we can have a good understanding. Another issue is that my mic also has some processing, and I have a De-Esser already in my preamplifier, so that also doesn't help. But let's work here with Maximus. And as you can see, Maximus is a multi-band compressor, and we have here several bands. So let's go ahead and let's just let me see, let's mute all the other bands. Let's work just on the high band here. So let's listen to this. So we can see that already we are just working on single frequencies, and we could go actually a step further. Let's go here to the mids, and let's mute the highs, and now we can just even focus on just a single part here. And I would say S's or sibilance would be from 5 to maybe 10. Okay, we can tune this here. And now we can start adding some compression. So let's go here to the mids, and let's start adding some compression. Okay. I would like to have a little bit more how can I say, more gain in this one to see what are the values. Okay, this threshold doesn't work. Okay, and we could probably let me see. Okay, let's go to monitor here, and we can see that we already are applying some compression here. We could go even lower. So we can see that we are actually applying here some compression, and we can also bring down some of the volume here. Okay, maybe like that. So now we can go to the other ones and just put off or compressor off. Test one. Okay. Let's see the before and after. Test one. Test. Okay, let's maybe focus on this part here, which I think has the most. Test. It's a very small difference, but you can see that we are already reducing some of the sibilance of the and we can actually see it here that we are reducing quite a lot, maybe around -7 dBs, here -9. So we are reducing a lot of the sibilance. We can also bring down here the post. So test. I think that should give me less volume in the output, but it's not actually. I think probably it is. Let's see before and after again. Again, this is just reducing some of the sibilance, and this is how you can do with maximums. Let's go ahead now and use the other one, the multiband compressor, and let's see if we can achieve the same thing. So let's mute both the high and the low bands, and let's work here with the mid bands. Let's go to this one, and let's put this around 5 again, 5 or 6K, and this one at 9 should be fine. And then we can actually make this something like that, so make them a little bit more aligned. Okay, so we are listening to just this mid band now, and we can now adjust this. Let's do a 3-to-1. A knee, we can put the knee at 0 to have a strong knee. And let's play with the attack here. Let's do a fast attack. Slower release. And gain here we can, I think we are already reducing a lot of the sibilance. And now if we put this in bypass. So we are just controlling the sibilance using this multi-band compressor. I would go more with maximums because it gives us a little bit more control over here, the sibilance. And of course, there's also other ways to do this, but I think these are the quickest ways. And actually, if we go to maximums, we have here a preset for de-essing. Yeah, we do have here a split band and a narrow band. So as you can see, we can always adjust these ranges. And this is pretty much how I had. So as you can see, comp off for low, mid on, the high comp off. The other one here, the split band, it just gives us 2 bands. So everything above this frequency, which is 3.3, it will be compressed. And of course, we can change this here. So I think that's it. It's a good way to have a de-essing here in FL Studio, even though I would prefer to have a specific plugin just to handle this, just a plugin called De-Esser. But yeah, you can do it basically with anything that allows you to change bands and apply compression. Okay, so next up, the next question is that I have here is a good one also, and it took me a while to understand. And what is the difference between reverb and convolver? So let me just do a small break here. If you are joining the chat, or joining the live stream, just say hi in the chat so that I know that you are here. I don't see anymore how many people are joining, so If you wanna interact with me or just say hi in the chat or post your questions, I will be more than happy to answer them. Let's go now to FL Studio and let's see the difference between Reverb and Convolver. So first, what is reverb? Reverb is an effect that adds reverberation to a sound. And everything in the world has reverb. So maybe not the acoustic, there's some chambers, some acoustic chambers that do not have any reverb because they are completely like really dead. If I have someone talking in the back of me, I can only hear them through the vibrations of their throat in the back. So it's what's the name? And I don't remember the exact name, at least in English, of that chamber, but it's a very specific chamber that has no reflections, so no reverberation. But basically everything in our world, everything that we listen has some reverberation, which is the sound going through and or the sound traveling through and hitting objects and going back. So that's a spreading out of the wave, and through that we have some complex mixing of the bouncing waves and all that stuff, and create some type of reverberation. That's why when we go to a small room, we have a different type of vibe or a different listening experience when we go, for instance, to a church or something like that. So it gives us different acoustic, I don't want to say treatment, but acoustic characteristics. So that's what reverb is. And we can use reverb to our effect here in mixing, especially our production, and to give our sounds a space. And we can actually do that very simply, or I can replicate that very simply. Let's bring here a snare. This one, for instance, this could be a good one. If I put here this snare, you see that it's dry. It's just a snare. So let's go now and add some reverb to this one. Reverb. And you automatically see that or hear that this gave a nice ambience to the track, to the sound. And of course we can just play around with parameters. We can make it short. We can make it large. Okay, we can also have some cathedral. Let's see this one. Okay, this is a cathedral, a drum room. As you can see, it's different types of acoustic reflections that this gives us, and it can really break or make your track. So this is basically what reverb is in a very, very basic form. But basically here we have, in this plugin, we have an algorithm that is creating this type of reverberations. And this is usually based, or this type of algorithms are based with echoes and filters. And it's a very complex formula, or it can have complex formulas, but that's the basis behind it. It's just a combination of filters and echoes, and we can also have distortion and a bunch of stuff. But basically what we have here is, at least in the case of Reverb 2, is an algorithm that is processing or giving some characteristics to a sound or affecting the sound. And I'm talking about this because if we go to Convolver, we can see that now we have a wave file. And this is a little bit strange because in this one, we don't have any way to manipulate audio. And in this one here, we do. So in this case, the case of, let me just organize this a little bit better. In case of Reverb 2, we had an algorithm. So let's go here to this cathedral, and we can try to find some one here that can also be a cathedral. Let's see if we have some preset for that. Corridors, chambers. Not sure if we have. Let's go with a church, maybe distance here. Let's see this one. So let's listen to the reverb one. Let's now listen to the convolver. So it's a little bit different. Let's see. But in a way, it gives us similar effects. One, it's longer, but I can also decrease here the decay. Okay, something like that. So one is brighter, the other one is a little bit darker, but they give us a similar vibe. So what's happening here? The difference between one and the other is that in this one we have an algorithm behind the plugin that is gives us all these parameters that we control, and it gives us a processed vibe. In the case of Convolver, we are applying convolution, and convolution basically is just taking every single sample of the audio that you are playing and is going through, is applying this curve here. So it's a little bit technical, but basically we are taking every single point here in the sample, and we are multiplying it with this sample here. So it's a multiplication of this sample with this sample, while in the Reverb 2 is a algorithm that is applying something to this sample here. So I hope that makes sense. It's a little bit hard to understand the technical side of it, but basically the good thing about the Fruity Convolver is that we can apply any single file here. So let's say that you go to a church and you just clap, and then you record the reverberation of that church, of that room that you went. You can now bring into Convolver that same frequency response, or the same response of that recording that you did, and you can bring it here, and it will apply to that thing or to the sample that you have. So this is very powerful, and you cannot do that here with Reverb 2. Reverb 2, you have a set already, algorithm here set, and you can change the parameters to achieve something that you want, but you cannot change the algorithm. And here in the Convolver, what you do is you are multiplying this curve here with that sample there. And basically, you can have whatever sample you have here. We can also have the sample convolving with the same sample. So let's see how does this sound. Okay, let's do. Okay, let me maybe reduce here or put a limiter here so that it doesn't clip. Okay, but you can see that we have now, let's do. Okay. You see that we can even apply some crazy effects with this Convolver, and it will give us some really strange things. We can also emulate, for instance, with the Convolver, we can emulate cabin amplifiers. We can emulate, you can bring up here any sound that you want. So let's do a convolution of the kick with hi-hat. Let's see this one here. Let's see if this sounds good. You saw? So what is doing that? Let's do the default here so that we have the parameters defaulted. And as you can see, so this sound here has this stutter, those clicks there, and this is applying that same response there to the snare. So you can see that you can apply convolution to with any single impulse response, and you will have different effects. We can also have, as you can see, we have reverb devices, we have spring reverbs, and this basically every single thing here is a different audio. And if we play this, you see this is the frequency response or the impulse response of this Montclair church. And if I go, for instance, to this one, it's a different one. It's kind of like a forest. So let's listen to this one. So it's kind of gives us an idea that the sound is being played in a forest. So that's the point here of the difference between reverb and convolver. Reverb is a set algorithm that you can apply to give some reverberation to your sound. Convolver applies convolution with a sample source here or an impulse response, and you can use any sample to create an impulse response. Okay, let's go now to some announcements. If you are new here to the live stream, just say hi in the chat. I will be doing these live streams every Saturday at around 6 p.m. GMT +2, which is Berlin time. So you can see and check your time difference. And I also have a link in the description where you can join the newsletter, where I will be sending some forms so that you can post your questions there. And those questions will have a higher priority compared to ones with the chat. And I think that's it. Let's go to the next one. I have still 2 questions here. And let's go first with this one here. What is the Layer plugin? There is a plugin in FL Studio called Layer. And this is a very cool plugin. And we can go here to MISC and we see here Layer. And if I load this one, you see that it has nothing. It has a bunch of buttons, but if I play stuff, no sound goes here or no sound is played. And this is very interesting and it's very powerful. So, and the name says a little bit of what is this plugin all about. So let's say that I want to have, let's do this hi-hat and this hi-hat and maybe this one here. Let's say that I want to play all 3 hi-hats at the same time. What I would do is do something like this, something like so. And now if I play, I can now change the volume, I can change panning. As you can see, now if I want to make a change again, and let's say that I want to move this one a little bit, one step to the right, I have to delete 3 times and create 3 times. And a easier way to do this is using layers or this plugin Layer. So I can remove this. And now if I select all these plugins clicking on Shift, like so, you see that all 3 instances of these plugins or these samplers are selected. And now I can go here to the layer and do Set Children. Okay. And now if I go to this one here and if I start playing, you see that all the 3 samples are enabled. So this is a way for you to group samples and make stuff like this. If I remove this one, you see this one is also playing, this one is also playing, or all of them are playing. So this is very cool when you want to do layering of instruments. I did here with samples, but we can also do it with with plugins. So let's say that I want to have here some keys, and I also want to add a synth. So let's do 3x oscillator. Okay, let's go with a sine wave like that. And now I want to combine both synths or both instruments. I select both and I go here to layer. First I have to select them, set children. And now if I play stuff here, You see that now we can, whenever we play here something in the layer, it will actively play both instruments at the same time. And you can have a multitude of instruments set here in the layer. And as you can see, set children, and it will set all the plugins. Okay, and let's go now to the last and final question of the day, which I wanted to keep it for last, because it's a really good question, and it might how can I say this? It's one plugin that we have here. But let me just say the question. I'm here giving tours around the question. And what is gross beat? So gross beat is a pitch, volume, and time manipulation plugin. And pitch is gross beat is very powerful. It's a very, very powerful plugin that we can have here. And I'm just going to show you some of the excuse me, some of the parameters or the layout of the plugins, and we can play around with it to have a better understanding of the plugin itself. So this is the plugin, as you can see, gross beat, and it's very powerful. And we have here on the side, but let's start with the left part. So we have here some time presets. So these presets here are specifically for time manipulation, and these ones here are specific for volume manipulation. So let's say that I want to do this, and let me bring a loop so that we can hear. Let's go here, loops, and let's do that one. Okay, let me first reduce here the speed, and let's do that. And let me change the volume a little bit. So as you can see, this basic one is repeating the same note 3 times. Okay, let's go to this one. So as you can see, this is repeating several times the same instrument, or the same part here. So this first part here is repeated in this one here. If I change this, for instance, to here, you see that it doesn't play anything. If I change here, okay, so we have to give it a full play so that we can hear the sound here. So let's see. So as you can see, whenever I put it here, it means that it's playing actually the sound. Now let's see. Let's try to see. So we have this kick, snare, kick, snare, kick, snare, kick, snare, kick, kick. I think that's it. Okay. So whenever I go after the first beat, what is happening is that this goes also, and then it's playing. Whenever I have this here, it goes back in time and grabs this snare here. So let's listen. So as you can see, in this point there was no snare, so it's grabbing this snare here because it's let me see here. Let's put steps. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 steps, and you can see it's basically this is. Let me go to a different here, let's say. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 steps. So as you can see, this is how, and also here you can change the grid. And if I want to grab another kick, probably this kick here, I would go and put this one here. No, it would have to be this one. As you can see, there was no kick there. So this is getting the copy of the last reproduction or the last beat and is playing it here in this instance. So it's very powerful, very interesting. And you have to play around with it to understand it a little bit better. Let's go momentary. And then we have here volume. And as you can see, if I play now, So as you noticed here, whenever we have the green thing, we are playing with time, and whenever we have here the yellow orange curve, we are playing with volume. So let's go here to empty, and as you can see, there's this line here, this diagonal line, and then there's a bunch of lines. If I move this line here, if I move this point to this line here, we will have no sound. So this is the stop line, as you can see. And now let's say that I want to place a point here. So what happened is that I will have sound going forward here in this point, and then I will have no sound going afterwards after the second beat. Okay, so we could manipulate this to have it here. For instance, only play the first beat. And we can also play around with this, like so, creating a new point there. Let's make this one a single curve. Let's make that one something like that. So now we play first beat, then silence, then the third beat, and then silence. Okay, so this is understanding a little bit of the time line here. And then if we go below this silence line, then we are going backwards. Let me... you saw here, it needs a complete reproduction so that we can grab some data from the past to have this effect here. So let's do it a little bit harder. As you can see, it's going like it's reversing the sound. So if we go below here, we are reversing. If we go above, we are accelerating. Okay, let's do something like that. Okay, let's do something like this. As you can see, if the slope of the curve is negative, so if we are going down, means that we are going, we are reducing the pitch. If we are moving up, it means that we are going faster, accelerating the pitch. Okay, if I do something like this, you see that is really going fast. And if I do something like this, because it's in the line of the 0, then we have silence. But if we do something like this, it's going back really fast. Okay, so I think that's it in terms of gross speed. I mean, I could stay here for hours and talk about this, but I'm also not the most. I still have a lot of stuff to understand in this plugin, but those are the basics, especially this line here for you to understand. Also the curves, if they go up or down here in the time, here in the volume, you just drag and drop and basically just creates a volume curve like you specify like that. So there's nothing too crazy in this one compared with the volume time, with the pitch time, with the pitch line, sorry. And this one just creates this curve with volume. So this is very simple. And actually you can have sidechain here, for instance. This is sidechain. And instead of doing it with a compressor, you can also use a gross speed to do side chaining. So that's, I think here the what's the word, the time or the volume envelope is very easy to understand. The harder one for me, it's actually the pitch here, because it's the most it's the hardest one to get a grasp. And of course you have to try it out, test it to really get a hang of it and to really understand a little bit better how it works. And you can also go through some of the presets here. Let me just take let me just remove the points, oops, so that we have a constant volume. Okay, and let's go +2. As you can see, this is speeding up the sample. Of course, the first 2 beats, it will not have anything because we don't have any audio information to speed up. So we need a buffer of information so that we can speed it up or sped it up. And we can also go halftime. And as you can see, this goes up and this goes down. Okay, we can also have the scratching thing, and you can see that it's a little bit wiggly. So we can learn a little bit also from these presets here to try to understand what's going on. But basically that's it. Here, this line represents no volume or no velocity. If we have a positive slope, meaning that the line is going up, means that it's speeding up. If the line goes down, it means that is slowing down. And we always need a certain time of buffering to have effect represented. So the best way to actually have this effect is just to bounce stuff out. So you apply effect that you want, you bounce the sound out, and then you re-import it into your project so that you can manipulate it a little bit easier. And as you can see here, the curve is going down, but here at this point, it's pretty much flat. So in this point forward, it plays the sound normally. So again, if it goes in a straight line, then it means that it's playing the sound as it normally would. And if it goes down, slows down. If I go up, I need some time so that the buffer fills with data, and then it speeds up. So I think that's it, at least a basic introduction to gross beat. And I think I'm going to finish here today. It's been already 1 hour minus 10 minutes where I was talking and you were not listening because I had my mute button on. Sorry about that again. And actually, this was nice to do this live stream because I was feeling a little bit moody in the beginning, but now I'm feeling better. I think that's one of the things why I love music so much. It just makes me feel better whenever I work on stuff, and I think that's why I make these tutorials and I try to help you guys. And yeah, I think I will finish here. So these live streams will be happening every Saturday at around 6 p.m. GMT +2, which is the Berlin time. And I have a link in the description so that you can subscribe to the newsletter and ask questions there. Those questions will have priority here in the live streams. And that's it, guys. Thanks for your questions. Thanks for your comments. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.